I'm ready.
We're seeing you here on this new rendition, this new edition of National Treasure: Edge of History. Was there something about Casey or the series itself, becoming from a movie to a TV show, that really made you want to be a part of it?
Yeah, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Yeah, they were like, "Well, you're a henchwoman." I was like, "Okay, that makes sense. To whom?" And they were like, "Catherine Zeta-Jones." And I was like, "Yes, that sounds about right." If I ever wanted to like live some sort of um fantasy of my youth where I like ride in on a horse and like scoop Catherine Zeta-Jones up and like throw her in the back and be like, "It's okay, Catherine Zeta-Jones, I got you." Like I basically was able to do that with this series. Although Catherine Zeta-Jones in this series doesn't need anyone to save her. I am really her underling in this story. She is a tremendously capable character. Billy is a force in this story.
Did they tell you much of a backstory on Casey and Billy connecting?
They did. They did. Yeah, there was a whole, I think there was some stuff on the chopping that you'll discover a few things about our relationship and then a lot about the emotional life of our relationship as it goes on. But yeah, I was given some backstory. I'm not I in this story I don't come from a very nice place. And I'm given, Billy's organization really tucks me under in terms of family and making me feel like I have a place. And there's a lot in my circumstances in this story where, I would be willing to do almost anything to preserve the integrity and safety. She's she's my family in this story.
Talk about then your first connection with Catherine. It sounds like maybe you might have fangirled a bit, or were you able to keep it together?
I mean, if you're fangirling at your work, then you're probably in the right job. I feel like if, when I did Mr. Mercedes, like I had been a huge Brendan Gleeson fan for so many years. And so to be in like there's so many incredible things about my work. And there's oftentimes when you're shooting, and in this show I did a lot, there was stunts, there was fighting, there was my first episode is we did some car, driving through the town and having, a stunt driver did some driving. And there's moments on set where you're like, this really is the coolest job in the whole world, that I get to sit here and make these stories up with these talented, and Catherine Zeta-Jones is so incredibly talented and focused, and she really knows her relationship with the camera is extraordinary, and she knows, her experience. And I think that Catherine Zeta-Jones is one of these people that keeps on being reintroduced to every single generation, every 5 years, 10 years. She's has a longevity that is extraordinary. In Wednesday right now, she's, and now this week in National Treasure, she's being introduced to a whole new group, you know what I mean? And she has that background in theater and background in, she's like highbrow populace is how I think of her, which is how I'd love to think of myself as well. Where I'm making some weird art here, but I also want to make it for the world, you know.
I mean, your career is vastly different from all the projects you've been doing, so I think we can include you in that as well now.
Maybe. Yeah, I feel like doing National Treasure, I mean, doing a Stephen King thing and then Unreal before that, like uh and then a plethora and slew of independent films in between these things. And I actually have a film coming out at Sundance called Birth Rebirth, which is going to make people feel very uncomfortable, and I'm really excited about it. So it feels good to be doing a very wide variety, but I feel like with National Treasure, I'm going to experience something that I've never experienced before when people are seeing it, I think. I think it's a level of uh pop that I don't know if I've engaged with. Well, maybe I have. Maybe I have. I guess every time I do anything, it feels like a new thing, you know. That's what's so cool about being a gig worker.
Well, I mean, Casey is such a badass. The stunt work in this is phenomenal. Talk about the process you had to go through to do all of this badass work.
um, there was I mean, every set, the stunt team is the most down to earth, together, really fun. I absolutely adore, when I did I had a really in-depth stunt team that I worked with on Midnight Texas. And then on National Treasure, my Lydia, my stunt woman, who is, she looks so much like me. Oh, I need to I'll post a photo of her. She's such Lydia Hand is her name. And so she came in and she worked with me, and the whole group worked with me. And then when it came time to do it, I like the weird physical stuff. I've sort of, when I was in my background is like weird movement, dance theater, like guerrilla street performing. So I really love the part where you do stunts. It feels like a dance. It feels like a collaborative dance. It is so exciting and so fun. But yeah, so I did all the stunts. I think there's a stunt where Lydia came in and did, because of the repetition of it was dangerous. So it's always really awkward when you come in and you're like, all right, I'm gonna get like let's say kicked in the chest and then fly back and like fall, right? So I'm like, yeah, I got this. I got this. And then I do it. And then they are like, okay, now we're going to do it like 100 more times. So then they're like, and then the stunt woman comes in, like on Midnight Texas is Caitlin Deshelle. And she, uh, you know, they had me be tackled and I fall back on these stairs. And then they had a nice thing for me to land on so my back wouldn't get hurt. And then they're like, all right, Caitlin, now it's your turn. And they just remove the padding. And I'm like, are you going to be okay? And she's like, no, this is going to hurt, but it's the job. So, yeah, it's a pretty exciting, that's one of my favorite things. I gravitate towards, I love to do action things. And I think I appreciate the whole process involved in stunts and what it takes and all the people involved in the logistics. And it's a very fun thing to do for me.
Well, I was going to ask what were some of your most memorable moments from filming, but it sounds like every single day was a challenge, but also epically cool.
I mean, I think in episode there's sometimes there's you get to sometimes I get to do something at work where I guess it's like a collective flow state where everyone is really brought their A game that day, from camera to, everyone's sort of in it and involved in the story. And I feel like around, I think episode 5. Oh, I can't remember. There's a scene where I just had a beautiful um moment with Catherine, and this amazing director Monica brought such a sort of love of her work and love of actors into the moment. And I was able to walk away from work that day saying, I love my job. I love my job. I mean, I often say that when I leave work, but sometimes you're like, this job is crazy. This job is insane. And what have I done with my life? And it was the exact opposite of that. It was like, oh, maybe all this like grueling hustle is worth it after all. You know.
It sounds like almost a dream job for you. So does this mean that you take away an interest in doing more stunt work in the future, more action films or action series in the future?
I think so. I mean, I feel like I was in a horror movie, XX, and that was the first time where I think it was the first time where I really got to do my own stunts. And then the first film that I ever did, I worked with wolves, which is like when the person that you're in the scene with is a dangerous animal that is following chunks of meat around a car that you're running around, on an indie film where they don't have a lot of money for stunts. It's definitely like uh yeah, I mean, I remember I was rigged up to a thing and they hoisted me in the air and I was supposed to be flying, not in National Treasure. People are like, what? Oh yeah, by the way, Casey is an angel. No, I'm just kidding. Um,
She's
but
a
like,
henchman slash
yeah,
angel.
henchman slash bat. So yeah, yeah. In episode 6, I become a bat, and then yeah, Catherine Zeta-Jones is a vampire. But so yeah, there's I've been like flying through green screens and um it's definitely something I would like. I mean, but I also like to do like guttural, intense stories, real, beautiful. I like to do it all. But there is something really satisfying about stunt work, for sure.
What do you think it is then about this iteration of National Treasure that's going to make it such a fast fan favorite series?
I think Lisette Oliveira is a superstar. And I think that Zuri, Antonio, Jake, Jared, like they're that group of kids is like Jordan. I'm like saying Jared. I'm like, I always get their names and their actual there's too
The
many.
character
But
and the real person behind them.
I know, I'm like Jordan, not Jake. I'm like yeah, okay. And then Ethan. And then okay. That group of actors is so extraordinary. And Lisette really was a leader on that set. And this is her, to be so young and walk into a situation where you're number one on set and have the grace and talent and real warm energy, and just a show like this needs a leader, and Lisette is a leader, and Catherine Zeta-Jones is so extraordinary to work with, and she's such a magnetic and talented artist. And so the two of those, that dichotomy between those two women sort of moving in the world in this series, I think is going to glue it together. And I mean, the Wibs have such a sort of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They bring back so many fun things about the film. They bring back so many like interesting little sprinkles through the entire series. It's just like referencing the films the whole time. It's really quite fun. People who are in love with the movies are going to love the series, and then people who've never seen the movies are also going to be able to just pick right up. This show is incredibly fun, and also, you know, this week 2 episodes come out, and this is one of those series that like, you get to know everybody, and then the heat is gonna get applied, and the temperature is gonna rise, quite literally and figuratively. When we were shooting in Baton Rouge, it got real hot, and like, you know, it really gets exciting. I think people are gonna love it.
You've done, as I touched on before, a number of incredible pieces of work, and I'm sure people mention all the time Unreal to you, and they talk to you about Mr. Mercedes. What are some of your favorite projects that you've been a part of, though?
Oh, that is I mean, I love all my children equally. Um, I mean, you know what's funny is sometimes you can have a beautiful, I can have an incredible experience making something, and then the art later isn't exactly like punch punch, it doesn't like make um me rattled, and then some of the things that I've done I had a horrible time shooting, and it's like really crazy, and then the art afterwards is you're like, that's good, and so you can like remember it much better. But it's a weird thing because there's a piece of art at the end of months of work, and I'm the actor. I come in at the last minute and do like a triple dive off the diving board, but there's a group of people who've been building each project for years, sometimes decades. And so every project when you come on has people who are excited about it in a way that is infectious. It is you know I did a piece with Nicole Perlman, and we shot it deep in the woods of Portland, Oregon, and she's a brilliant mind. And I think one of my greatest accomplishments as an artist so far, like in my heart, has been producing and co-writing a movie called Mother's Little Helpers with Kestrin Pantera. And I was at South by Southwest when Unreal came out, and it premiered at South by, in the episodic section. And my father died, and I had to that weekend, and I had to like get on an airplane and fly out. And it was like the worst, experience of my life. And I missed the premiere party, and I don't know. It was a very intense, very crazy confluence of this great thing happening in my life, coupled with this absolutely devastating thing happening in my life. And then years later, I make this movie with Milana Vaintrub and Sam Littlefield and Melanie Hutzel and Kestrin Pantera, and it's this improvised film about the death of a parent. And then we premiered it at South by, and my whole family came, and this was like 5 years after the first my father's death. And I got to sit in this room with all of these families and all these people and present a film about the death of a parent at the place where my parent died. And it was like this very amazing moment where I was just like, thank you for this job, thank you for this art, thank you for these people, thank you for this world of making stories together. And it was like one of those pinnacle moments. And then yeah, I mean, that's one story. But I have so many stories like that, like working with Brendan Gleeson. I had this incredible scene with him one day, and I remember going back to my trailer and just like crying because I was so grateful for the opportunity to learn from somebody who I admire so much, and there's so many moments like that. And so I don't know how to marry that with, how popular something is, or how widely it's seen. Mother's Little Helpers is an indie film. A lot of people didn't see it, and the relationship of people actually seeing something in a big populist way is very, very satisfying. And to know that I have some sort of relationship with lots and lots of people, but also there's a whole other side of this that's like, on my deathbed, I'll be like, that movie was pretty good or whatever. Like, it's like, it's all cumulative of my experiences. So it's a kind of a confusing thing, basically. It's confusing, and it's full of gratitude. But yeah, Catherine Zeta-Jones is one of those people where you're like, man, this woman is got like
She's a force.
vibrating. Yeah, she's like hooked into some sort of like high and low vibration that's like boom, boom, boom.
Well, I must ask, what would you like to say then to everyone who are fans and supporters of the wonderful work you do on our screens?
Oh, I think try to be happy and enjoy your life. Kiss your baby, kiss your mom, kiss your lover, and try to make your art, because you don't know where any of it's going to go. And you have to spend your life in a way that feels good, I think. I'll get back to you on that. Meet back here 50 years from now, same place. I'll give you an update.
It's a deal.